Thanks everybody for coming. I'm going to call this meeting to order. You all should have gotten copies of last month's minutes. We don't need a formal approval, but they are in the back. One thing I do need to point out is every meeting we pass around a sign-in sheet. It's extremely important that at some point you sign in on this sheet, because we track attendance, we track how much in-kind time that people donate to the AOD partnership, and we also include questions on them of information that we'd like to know from you. So for example, on this month's sign-in, it says, will you be attending the Faces of Recovery luncheon? Yes, no, or maybe. So I guess that's just something that I need to make sure I plug. But is there any questions or additions to the minutes? By your silence and just staring, I assume that means we're good. And you also, on the minutes, you always have the link, the direct link for the last meeting's recording. So if you ever do miss a meeting, or if you ever like, I think I heard this, but I'm not for sure, make sure that you can check it out, you can zoom through it online. On that, I'm gonna start this one. And on the sign-in, if you don't find your name, then sign in the guest spot, which is on the last 3 pages. Also included in your seats is our meeting evaluation form. For all of our meetings now, we're going to be doing evaluations. We want to make sure that we're meeting your needs as well as meeting the needs of our funders, which is important as well. So if you have to leave early, please make sure that you complete this, and you can leave it out on the registration table outside. There are a number of other materials left outside. Many of your handouts are right in your spots today, but we have a lot of our annual reports for the AOD partnership. So if you have anybody that you think would benefit from that information, if you want to grab a stack of them, please grab a stack, share with others. Put that out there. And then some of the additional handouts from our speakers who will just kind of hint at what's out there. When you leave, you can grab those on your way too. As far as other reports, the treasurer's report, I don't have the total right now, but it will be indicated in the minutes, so you will be able to see what the balances are as we go forward. We have been very lucky and very fortunate to be able to be doing a lot of outreach, so there's been some money coming into our AOD fund online as well as into our checking accounts. We've been very thankful and fortunate for that. As far as stat and volunteer opportunities, you don't have any written updates today because we haven't met. We don't have any meetings scheduled. So that just kind of stresses the importance of, if you're not paying attention or you're not on our weekly update listserv, please make sure that you check those out. Open them up, see if there's any meetings coming up, because that's how we're letting people know those are taking place. Just want to make sure that everybody's kind of paying attention to those. So you don't have to spend a lot of time in them. They're usually pretty concise. As far as some of the important save the dates coming up, you all should have a copy of a postcard in front of you. On one side, we are going to be having a heroin press conference coming up on the 14th to highlight the release of the latest State Council on Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse report. Deb Piscotti, wherever I just saw her, there she is. Deb Piscotti, myself, Lance Leonard, and Sheila Wykes from North Central Healthcare all helped contribute to that report. We think it's going to be a great tool for communities across the state to be able to use. I do have some hard copies, but I'm saving them till the press conference next week. And on the back side of your press conference reminder, there's actually a hold the date for a heroin and opiate abuse summit. That's going to be taking place at the end of September. So we're going to have printed copies at those for people to pick up. Otherwise, you can download your copy and check it out online. You have the link on the postcard. So that is 2 of the save the dates. Maureen, can I have you speak about the recovery luncheon?
Sure. As your agenda indicates, the recovery luncheon is scheduled for September 9th at the Jefferson Inn from 11:30 to 1. I'm excited to share that we have completed all the videotaping of the 4 individuals who will be our Faces of Recovery for 2014. And the taping sessions were phenomenal. Now they're on the editor's board being clipped and put together. To get a sense of what these video presentations will look like, when Michelle Devine-Easy makes her presentation today for Step Industries, she's going to share a video excerpt of a story, and the same individuals who built and designed and created Michelle's production are the individuals who are working on ours for this September event. So you'll get a sense of how we will be capturing their stories. But however, they're people from here in Wausau that we know and interact with every day. The tickets for the lunch are $20. That includes lunch and the event of that day. And they aren't available this very moment, but will be available probably later this week. So it's very important that we sell out the 150 seats that we have reserved for the luncheon. So that's why as you're signing up, if you're interested in going, please indicate that so we can make sure to get a ticket to you. And if you know you'll need more than one ticket, please indicate that as well. If you have questions after the meeting or at any time, I'm happy to ask me and I'll be okay.
And as updates occur, they end up on our website in the calendar. So as the tickets go up, as the registration information goes up, all those things are going to end up in the calendar. So make sure you check that out regularly because that's where we're posting a lot of stuff. Before I have Aaron come up, we've been doing a lot of outreach. You might have heard or seen if you listen to 5:50 a.m. They did a great story about last week. Lisa, Destiny, I think Andrea, we hoofed it in the Forest Park neighborhood. If you haven't been over by the Old Women's Community, it is all hills. It was hot, it was raining, it was storming, it was fun. We all got t-shirts. So if you want to participate, we're going to be doing some outreach in some other municipalities over the end of the summer and into the fall. So we just pretty much hanging information on doors, on their mailbox. It's a great way to get out, get some exercise, and it's helping us. Just to give you an example, within an hour of them going, restorative justice has been a big part of stuffing these, so the youth that are part of that program. Within an hour, we had somebody call that wanted to get involved. We had somebody donate money online to the AOD partnership. I mean, this is great. I mean, a lot of great attention, and all the feedback that we've gotten has been supportive. Even from the houses that I know Sue and Sue's experience, even the houses that we know are probably drug houses, we've gotten some positive feedback from them as well. So if you do participate, you get a free t-shirt. I'm bribing you with t-shirts. Aaron?
You want to flip to the next slide? So I'm just going to give a quick update on Western Maritime County, our Healthy Communities Coalition out there. We're making good progress. Oh, sure. As you can see, our next meeting is going to be Wednesday, August 20th from 8:30 to 10. We're going to be at the Corner Kitchen in Edgar. But one of the main things we're working on now is a community assessment. And Melissa did send out the link to our survey in last week's update. We're going to send it out this week as well. But I would encourage you all to check out WMCHC.org. It's the new website for our coalition out there. We just have a quick survey, and it's really for people who live out in Western Maritime County, so Edgar, Marathon, Stratford, Athens, Colby, Abbey, Spencer. If you live out there, you know folks that live out there. I'd encourage you to go to our website, find that survey link, and send it out to them. We're really trying to capture, what people think are the main concerns out there with substance abuse. So that group is going strong. We keep getting new members. We've got the school districts involved. So if any of you, we encourage you all to get involved and be involved in our next meeting. So Wednesday, August 20th, out in Edgar.
One last thing before we turn it over to the partner updates. We're going to be doing recruitment for our next round of AOD board members. So if anybody's interested, we have a number of positions that will be available. You can let myself, you can let Wally Sparks, you can let Maureen Jorgensen, who doesn't know that she's on this committee. You can let us know, and we're also going to be asking Frances Irwin as well. She's in the back. She doesn't know that either. Sweet. So if you're interested, you can let any of the board members know. They have the blue name tags. With that, I am going to have Brian Zimmerman come on up to share a project that he is working on. I don't know if you have anything you want to share.
Hi everyone, I'm a student at UWSP, or Stevens Point. I'm also an intern for Marathon County Solid Waste Department. I'm working with Melissa Johnson, the director, and Melissa Dotter on coming up with kind of collaborative research on sharps disposal in Marathon County. We are looking at kind of the structure that's currently in place in terms of which pharmacies and locations are currently available for people to drop off their sharps, which can be syringes, lancets, EpiPens, and stuff like that for the current locations. And we're looking to see what type of education is also out there in terms for people who want to use or who do use sharps or even illicit drug users. The hope and goals of this this research is to find the gaps that are currently in place in this county in terms of sharps disposal and see which ways we can fill those gaps in terms of outreach or drop-off locations at places like police stations or pharmacies or even hospitals and clinics. We're also looking to either create a more collaborative hub in terms of education by creating maybe a website or putting out brochures. We've looked to two other counties in terms of their own sharps disposal program. We've looked at Brown County and Portage County to see what types of avenues they've taken, and they've helped kind of lead directions on kind of pitfalls that we might run into in future when trying to set up an actual program. I don't know if anyone has any questions, but I was just kind of giving a synopsis of what we kind of are doing. And I'll be around after the meeting to answer anyone's questions or if they want any more information. Feel free. Thank you.
Lindsay? Do you guys want to come up? As Lindsay's coming up, one thing that I did forget to mention, there's a training opportunity coming up, so if you want to know about alcohol policy a little bit more, Lisa Rasmussen from City Council and myself will be actually speaking at this a lot of press conferences, at this meeting. So if you're interested, the information's on the slides and on our website.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Kuyava, and this is Lucas Gajewski, and we are from a local fine arts group called Introspect Arts. For those of you who may not be familiar with us, we are a group of young adults all under the age of 25 who write, direct, design, and perform a variety of things ranging from musicals to rock ballets to plays that all deal with social issues that teenagers are dealing with in our community. And the reason that I'm here today is because we have a show coming up this weekend that deals with drug and alcohol abuse. And to give you a little bit more about that show, I'm going to have our director, Lucas Gajewski, give you a little bit of background on that.
Yes. This show is titled Another Story, and throughout the process of rehearsals, we've had our cast come and learn from Lindsay's father, who's actually the former drug captain for the Marathon County Sheriff's Department. And they've been educated on different kinds of drug abuse and alcohol abuse, about why this kind of thing happened, the effects, and how to accurately perform that on stage, not to glorify it, but just to educate themselves and the audience that comes to it. In the show, we have a series of events that cause characters to go down a spiral from alcohol abuse down to different drugs, and pretty much how sometimes we allow ourselves to become victims of situations we're given in life, and then what kind of effects they have on people around us.
Sure, and through our program, we are really based in education. As Lucas mentioned, we foster community partnerships with individuals and professionals who are experts in the fields that we are studying. So the kids, their goal through this performance is to educate their peers and to encourage them to not go down that road. And also they've been given tools of how to identify if their friends possibly are, if they suspect that they are using, and what they can do to help them. So our performances are this weekend, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at the UWMC Center for Civic Engagement. Performance on Thursday is at 10 p.m. and Friday and Saturday at 7:30. If any of you guys have any questions about the group or the performance, I will be here after the meeting and would love to talk with you about any questions or comments that you have. So thank you for letting us come and share this.
And we'll make sure that all that information is on our website. So if you can give me some information
yes.
on dates, we'll make sure it gets added to there, because I think it's a great opportunity. One thing that, in working with partners throughout the state, one way to really engage our youth is through the arts. And I think that when Lindsay contacted me, I'm like, this is fantastic. I think this is exactly what we're looking for. It's very timely when we're here to talk about recovery and how we can support our youth in our communities. So, whoops, wrong thing. There we go. I think we're going to go ahead and get started with our program here today. Unless there's any other partner updates, quick updates. Anyone? Once? Twice? Okay. Well, first, I'm excited that Tom and Michelle are here today to talk about things that are happening throughout the state, because as we focus more and more on addiction, as we focus more and more on the impact of substance abuse on our community, we need to make sure we're continuing to reflect and to be part of how we can support recovery efforts here by individuals as well as within families, businesses, and so on. So first, we're going to have Tom Meyer, who is an Antigo native, fellow Antigo native, come up and talk about Aaron's house. And then we will have Michelle coming up and talking about Step Industries. So I'm going to have Tom come up first. Just going to pull your website up.
Okay.
So there you go. You have information on our speakers in front of you, as well as additional information from our speakers. So hopefully you saw that already.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. You can. Thank you. Sorry, hold it. And make sure everybody signs in, please. Thank you.
Bear with me one moment. Okay, thank you, Melissa, and thank you, everybody, for attending today. Man, what a turnout. The question that was posed to me was to address was how to build a community supportive of recovery. I say you've already built a community supportive of recovery by looking around here. I am not a professional in the field of medicine or psychology or psychiatry or recovery counseling. I am a parent of two boys, Aaron 27, Patrick 23. I'm a fellow who is in long-term recovery myself, and what that means is in 9.5 years ago, I had my last drink. Prior to that, I was a probably pretty typical binge drinking, high achieving father, business person, sports enthusiast, just the kind of person that lives, that you would know. But you wouldn't know everything about me, because some of the things that I did were done at home, behind closed doors. You weren't going to find me out in the bars being out of control, carrying on, getting in trouble, my name appearing in the newspaper. Somehow I managed to drive and not be arrested for driving under the influence, but that didn't mean that I didn't do that. So with that in mind, I'm telling you that because I want you to know who I am. I want you to know why I'm here today. I'm here today because 11 years ago, right now, I was discovering the depth of the drug culture's grasp on my son Aaron, who was 16 years old. He was going into his junior year in high school. Everything about him had changed, and it had all changed in a way like you look at a tree in the spring that has no leaves, and by the fall it's got this beautiful color. This was going the opposite way, but I couldn't tell. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. When the depth of the issue became clear, it was way late in the process. Our family's choice was to send Aaron to a glorified inpatient facility out in Prineville, Oregon, called Mount Bachelor Academy, which would be a therapeutic boarding school. As you might know, at 16 years old, you can't get somebody to just go into inpatient treatment. They have to be willing to do it. Aaron was anything but willing to do that. 14 months later, Aaron is clean and sober. He has a new outlook on life. He's living a life of recovery. He's said to me, "Dad, I don't care what you do or where you go, but you got to do something about you because you're killing Mom." That led me directly to 12-step groups. From that day forward, I started to look at myself, change my thinking, change my actions, people who associated with me started to change because some of those people didn't want anything to do with me any longer because I wasn't doing the things that I used to do. I wasn't involved in the kind of drinking that I used to be involved in. So some of my friend choices changed by their choice, some changed by my choice. But my way of living changed by my choice. I finally had choices to make. I didn't have to drink to go to a social event. If somebody asked me how much I drank, I'd say, I'm a social drinker. Every social event I drank prior to, at, and after. And I always went to social events, whether they're at my house or someone else's house. But that was my relationship with alcohol. My son's relationship with a drug was marijuana. That marijuana drug culture is huge, it's cunning, it's baffling, it's powerful. You all know about that, that's why you're here. Aaron and I were on a journey of recovery together when in April of 2004, he said to me, "Dad, I know what I want to do when I'm finished with high school in a couple months. I want to go back out to Prineville, Oregon, go to community college. I'm going to live with my friends who are in recovery. Our counselors are right there. We'll get jobs, we'll support each other, and Dad, I know it'll work because nobody knows what we go through like my friends and I who are in recovery." Because I got great friends, but they're not all in recovery and I can't live with them because they live a different lifestyle. And he said, "I love you, Mom and Dad, but I can't live at home. I'm 18, I want to go on my life." I said, "Man, that sounds like a great idea." The next month, morning of May 10th, Aaron had turned 18 just a few days earlier. I was in a group meeting. Somebody said a prayer. They said, one of the prayers that inspires them is, "God, let me hear what you need me to hear. Let me speak what you need me to speak. Let my mind and heart be open." And I said to the person, "That is a great prayer. I really like that." She wrote it down on a piece of paper and folded it over and put my name on it and slid it across the table to me. And I stuck it in a book on the date May 10th. Later that afternoon, I received a phone call from the person identified himself as calling from the Dane County Sheriff's Department Northeast Precinct in Windsor, Wisconsin, where we lived. My first thought was that something had happened with Aaron, that he was in trouble, that he had gotten off of the recovery beam and that he was in trouble again. And long and short of it was, the person said, "Tom, we need to talk to you right now. Something's happened." And I said, "Well, what is it? Can you tell me?" He said, "No, we need you to come out here." And I said, "I can't. I'm on my way to another appointment and I think I'm going to have to let this wait." And he said, "Well, it can't wait. We need to talk to you now. Can you pull over?" So I said, "Sure." And I hadn't yet pulled the car over. And I said, "Okay, I'm pulled over." And he said, "Tom, there's been a car crash. And your son Aaron was driving. It was a one-car accident." And I said, "Is he okay?" And the caller said, "As a matter of fact, he's not. He passed away." My first thought went right back to a couple days earlier, which was Mother's Day, May 8th, where in the morning I had said to Aaron, "Hey, I got something I want to share with you." A friend of mine pointed this passage out in this book that said, as the days in recovery turned into weeks and months and years, I became able to be the father that my children need me to be today when they need me most. I said, Aaron, what that means to me is I don't have to regret the past and I don't have to worry about the future. Because today I can be the father you need me to be when you need me most. And I told him all these things that I loved about him. I told him all the things I admired about him. I told him how now I understand how hard that 14-month journey had been for him. I didn't raise the bar. I didn't say to him, hey, now that you've done this, now you got to do that. That's the way I used to be. I'd say, oh, you got to this point? Well, you can reach higher. You can do more. Because I was always raising the bar on my boys. I'd always raise the bar for other people. That was my kind of expectations. I always had high expectations for other people, not necessarily for myself. I could tell people what to do. I couldn't show them what to do. I didn't do any of that. So when I got that phone call and the person who turned out to be the deputy coroner told me what had happened, there's that little pause, that little moment, and my first thought was, thank God, given that moment of time, I told my son all the things I admired about him. I told him I loved him. I didn't speak down to him. I asked him what he thought. We shared, we had dialogue. We had dialogue. That word is so huge to me. That's what you're all involved in, is dialogue. I was grateful for that. Later that night, I'm crawling across the floor. My head's buried in the carpet, and I'm trying to remember that prayer that I heard in the morning. And I couldn't remember it. And I remember my head's in the corner of the family room, and I can see the priest's shoes next to me. And the only thing I could think of while I couldn't remember that prayer was, God, I do not want this burden to bear, but if this is the way it has to be, then please help me do this with grace and dignity. I think that prayer and the one about let me hear what you need me to hear, let me speak what you need me to speak, and let my mind and heart be open, are prayers that get answered. At least they've been answered for me. I can stand here today and tell you I don't want you to feel sorry for me for what happened. I want you to be inspired by what has been created, not because Aaron died, but because he lived. He had an idea that was just a seed that got dropped on the ground when he died. And because other people who cared brought me into their world of the recovery counseling and let me hear Aaron's friends who he was on this recovery journey with, they let me hear what they had to say as they recovered. Aaron died in May. By August, I'm in this meeting with a bunch of young people, college students, and they're at 90 days of recovery, and they're in there with their families. And the question is, if they're having a celebration, the question is, what's your greatest challenge to maintaining sobriety? You know, what's the greatest challenge to maintaining this recovery journey? And the first young man said, I'm a student at MATC, which is the junior college in Madison. He said, I live at home with my mom and dad. I love my mom and dad, but they just don't get it. And that's right. They're mom and dad. They're not counselors. They're not peers in recovery. They don't get it. Guy said, I wish I had some friends that I could live with. Because I do all this work all day long. I go to school, I got a job, I do counseling, I do these things. But when I go home, you know, it's my mom and dad, and they're like raising the bar on me. The other guy said, I got the same challenge. I live in the same house where I got into trouble. He's a UW student. He's living with a lot of people who are living a different lifestyle than he needs to live. And I'm hearing this, and I'm like, this is so huge. This is Aaron's idea. They're describing what Aaron had said would help him, what he believed would work. I happened to be in the real estate field, so it was really simple for me to say, I know what to do. I'm going to go buy a house. I'm going to put together a bunch of people to make this thing work, and we're going to create housing for young people in recovery. who are continuing on in education. And I was, at that time, everything that I think you need to be to create a change in a culture, in a social environment. I think you need to be irrational. I think you need to be illogical. I think you need to be stubborn. I think you need to have blind faith. And I think you need to be passionate. I didn't know anything about building a recovery community. I knew that my connection with my son Aaron was going to be continuing an idea that he had so that he's making a difference in the world while I'm still here. That's about my motivation. Yes, I care about young people in recovery like Aaron. I care about their families. Today, I can say to you, I want to see these young people get well, and I know when one young person in recovery is getting well, they've got a mom and dad who are getting well, they probably have siblings who are getting well, they got aunts and uncles who are getting well, they got grandparents who are getting well, and they've got people who love them getting well. So when the question is, why is this important? Why it's important is because addiction affects the entire community in so many ways. Why it's important is because recovery affects the community in so many ways, in such a powerful way. I know that today. In the beginning, my motivation was to continue my bond with my son, doing something that he knew was going to work. And it wasn't to memorialize him. It wasn't to draw attention to him. Heck, in our family, we didn't want to talk about it. But you know what? The darkest days are the greatest possession, because by sharing them can help other people avoid misery and even death. By sharing this story about Aaron, Aaron's house grew. Community came together. We didn't market, we told stories. Maybe that's marketing. We told stories, we went everywhere that we could, asked, knocked on doors, got doors open, got doors closed. We ran into resistance. Resistance is so important. You want to have resistance because that inspires you to move on. If the more resistance you get, I believe the more important it is that what you're doing gets done. That resistance never stopped us. It might have deterred some people, but it attracted other people. And as recently as 2 years ago, let me back up. August 2007, Aaron's house opened its doors. It was the first and only collegiate recovery housing option in the state of Wisconsin for kids who are in recovery, wanting to continue their education. 2 years later, an article comes out in a little magazine called Brava Magazine. People who picked this up, my phone started ringing. Somebody who runs the Press House Apartments on the UW campus, Dr. Ginger Morgan, called me and said, I want to do something similar to that. I want to be part of what you're doing. They opened up Next Step at Press House for young men and young women in recovery. Somebody else came to us who had been coming to Aaron's house with other young women in recovery and having events there, and she said, I want to do this too. And I said, we'll help you. Whatever you need from us, we'll help you. They went out and did it. Connect House Sober Living for Women opened up last August. Aaron's House, Connect House, Press House. Then last year, Stacey Mathewson Foundation. If you write that down and Google it, or you'll find Stacey Mathewson Foundation. We helped the University of Wisconsin. We inspired them to bring the resources together, apply for a $10,000 grant to start a collegiate recovery community on campus at UW that's open to all students who go to college. That has been secured. Next, they started a Live Free student organization. I don't know what year the UW was started, but it goes back to 18-something. There has never been a student organization for young people to live free in recovery and go to school. There is now. That is culture change. Those things can be done because inspired people who know how to make these things happen come forward, and that's what I'm looking around this room. There's all kinds of talented, inspired people who have so many different ideas and can make things happen. You have everything that's necessary in order to create that change. There is always going to be, and we say this all the time, okay, think of UW-Madison. What's the first thing you think of? Anybody? Going to college student, going to school at UW-Madison? Party drinking, right? Okay, that's the culture. Some people embrace that. That's the story. Hey, UW Badgers go to a bowl game. Organizations fight over getting UW there because nobody travels like UW, nobody parties like UW, and when they buy beer and drink beer, nobody buys it and drinks it like they do, okay? That's the image. Fine. Let it be the image. I can't change that. What we're in business of is recovery. For people who want to get well, there is no better place where I live than Madison, Wisconsin. There's no better place in central Wisconsin than Wausau, Wisconsin, to get well and get smart in recovery, because you have what we have. You have educational facilities, you have health care facilities, you have organizations that support recovery, you have fabulous natural resources. Those are the things that matter for people getting well in recovery. In addition, employment. There are employment opportunities. There are, in addition, in Wausau, what you have is you may have that opportunity for people to come into a community and come into an area where there is a lot more peace and quiet and a lot more natural resources and a lot less other kind of stressors. Everything that you have here is the types of things that people look for to get well in recovery, get smart, get educated, and move on with life. We have that in Madison, and that's what we talk about. If everybody wants to talk about this other culture, they can talk about it. Well, we want to talk with the people who want to talk about getting well, getting educated, getting smart, moving on with life. This should be a destination. This should be a destination for people no matter where they live in the country or in the world if they want to get well and get on with their life and recovery. I thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. The Aaron's House brochure and the next step, that Press House brochures are out there. I don't have anything on Connect House, but we do have links to them on these brochures. And I also want to tell you that Wisconsin's Voices of Recovery is another organization that you can get I'll just pass that around because I didn't bring a bunch of those, but you could just Google them, Wisconsin Voices in Recovery. And they've got a grant and they're working to grow. So there's a lot of things going on. The wave of recovery is here. Across the country, there are student organizations opening up on campuses all over the country that are designed to provide that support for college students in recovery. And what they don't have is they don't have housing. But in Madison, Wisconsin, we've got housing. We created it through 3 nonprofits, privately funded. We don't have any government grants, but we go out and we raise money and we get grants from wherever we can to keep it going. So thanks for your interest in having me come to talk to you today, and I wish you the absolute best. Hope I can share some more with you today.
Are you gonna wander? No. Okay.
My name is Randy, and this is our story. Dan's mom and I divorced when Dan was about 5, and I think Dan had some anger over that whole situation. Dan wasn't living with us, and we would go for long stretches without much contact with him. It was hard to really figure out what we could do, until finally it got to the point where Dan had lost his job and lost his apartment, and he was living with a friend. We knew that the drinking issue was out of control. His friend's family finally had enough of Dan as well. They called my wife and said, "We're bringing Dan home. He can't stay here anymore. We're bringing his stuff with us." I was at work, and he showed up there, And they literally dumped everything off that he had in our parking lot. And Dan came in and talked to me, and I said, you can't come home in the situation that you're in, but I will do everything in my power to support you in treatment. He called a friend, and the friend came with a truck and picked him up, and at that moment, I wasn't sure I was ever going to see him again. About 2 days later, Dan called and said, will you help me get into treatment? I said, absolutely, I'll be with you 100% of the way. And that started the road to getting our son back. Mooring House was a great experience for Dan because it gave him some structure, it gave him an opportunity to get connected with STEP because Dan was not working at that point in time. And so it gave him a chance to get a job and get some work experience. What's a valuable life? If the programs turn one life around, then how do you put a number on that? How do you value putting a family back together? Literally, our prodigal son came home. I mean, he's a mile away from us today. We see them often. He has 2 great kids. He has a great job. Becky has a great job. I mean, it is a miracle. If we save one person's life, then everything that STEP and mooring programs accomplish is worth it. I want to say thank you. Thanks for my son back.
The Dan that he's talking about is my operations manager at STEP, and he has been clean, I would say about 16 years now, and now they have 3 kids. So it's a great story. So STEP Industries, we're a social enterprise, which means we use business thinking to do our mission. So we're 95% self-funded. So 5% of our income comes from donations from private foundations, but the rest of it is through the sale of our services. What we want to provide most is hope. That there's hope for a future, there's hope for change, there's hope for something different from where we are right now in recovery. So I was asked to talk a little bit about how it all began. A vice president of Kimberly-Clark who had a pot addiction was on the board of directors of a place called Mooring Programs. And he would go there during the day and everybody would be sitting around playing cards, smoking cigarettes. And he said, why aren't they working? And they said, nobody will hire them. They've got bad work records. Their health isn't the greatest. Nobody will hire them. And he also had a problem with diapers going to landfill. So he went to the president of Kimberly-Clark and said, I have an idea. Can we marry these 2 things? Can we take this addicted population trying to change their behaviors and these diapers going to landfill and have them sort them and make them into a new product? So we're recovering 2 things at the same time. And that was in 1982, and we've been going ever since. Who we help. 42% of our population for 2003 lists themselves as their drug of choice as opiates or heroin. Actually, since December, that's been 49% of our population that's their drug of choice. And they come from all walks of life. We have people with master's degrees. We have a pilot. And we have people who were the corner drug dealer. We've got every range of population doing the exact same drugs, having the exact same consequences, and having to start their lives over again. So since 1982, we've had, it's almost 10,000 people come through STEP. People will come to STEP and stay about 4 to 6 months. 51% leave to go what we call a positive exit. They're either moving home, getting a new job, or going back to school. We think successful recovery looks like this. You need all of these. If any of these is missing, it makes it really hard. And we're very lucky in the Fox Valley that we have all of these at our fingertips. We have great treatment, great education. We have great long-term housing for people in recovery, and we provide the employment piece. Who we partner with is mooring programs. As the video talked about, Dan had gone to treatment at mooring programs and then started working with us. We've had a long-term relationship with them. We have a fundraiser in October this year that we do together. We share staff. Many of the staff at mooring programs have come from STEP Industries. When our people are ready to move on to their next job, they'll go be support staff at mooring. Nova treatment, people come from all over the United States to go to treatment at Nova. We're very, very lucky. And then we work with all the treatment courts, probation, parole. They love to have people come work at STEP because we're watching for those signs in behaviors of people relapsing or the behaviors before somebody actually picks up the drug. And we're talking to the probation agents. We're talking to the counselors and saying, you know, this is what we see going on. What are you seeing? And we'll have them come in and we'll do a 3-way meeting with them because we're focused on that person we're trying to help. And so everything we do is really trying to make them see what their behaviors are looking like too. 70% of our people are professionally referred, so they're in treatment. But people can come to us anyway. They just can call us and say, I need an interview, I need a job. Our first question is, are you in recovery? And if they say yes, we hook them up for an interview. The application is the strangest application they will fill out. We don't have any questions about your previous job. We don't care. We don't care what you did before. We care about today moving forward. We want to know when was the last time you used. We want to know your sobriety date. We want to know your drug of choice. We want to know what you're doing for your recovery. You go into meetings, you go into church, you got a sponsor. What are you doing? Who are you connected with? We never ask what their previous work experience was. Orientation. We only start people in groups because we want people to feel like they belong. We want them to feel comfortable. We want them to know that there's other people just like them that day. All of us who do orientation can say, if it's me that day, 18 years ago, I was sitting in this orientation. I was you. This is where you're at today. It doesn't mean this is where you're at 10 years from now. So we're talking about how do you work on a team, which can be really interesting when you have 80 recovering alcoholics and drug addicts trying to work together. We're talking about how you dress for work. What's appropriate clothing? We don't allow anything that's sexually explicit. We don't allow anything advertising a bar or pot leaves or, you know, this is how you dress for work. This is what's appropriate. This is how you talk to each other at work. This is how you behave at work. This is how you punch a time clock. Because if you're 45 years old going to your first legal job and they say go punch in and you've never punched a time clock before, you have no idea what they're talking about. You don't know where to start. You're not going to ask somebody to teach you how to punch a time clock, you're gonna walk out the door and it's just gonna start that cycle again. So we assume that nobody knows how to be an employee and we teach them. Our day is a little different than maybe a regular work environment. We start out with huddle. So you're with your team leader and you're talking about how you did the day before. Because we have real goals. We have real bills to pay, so we have real goals. And we'll say, this project did 98%, and there's applause. This project did 75%. What was going on? And then they'll say, oh, we got some new people in partway through the day, and we did some training, or we moved something around. So they're just talking about it, or they're like, I don't know, we need help. Can you guys come look at this when we're done? Questions, comments, and concerns. So somebody might have court tomorrow, and they go, I have court tomorrow, and I feel like running. I feel like walking out this door and using. And then that's an opportunity for that peer support and go, you know, I've been there, hang in there, it'll be better tomorrow, get through it. You'll hear somebody say, do you want me to go with you? I'll take you to court. We do celebration of recovery days, 90 days, there's big applause, 180 days, whatever it is, it's big, it's a big deal. We read from a recovery-related book. We had somebody who couldn't read, and we had a place that volunteered to teach her to read. And so the first day she read in huddle from a recovery-related book was a big deal. And everybody was there to support her. Somebody's probably not going to open up about that in a regular work environment. They exercise. So we do stretches and different exercises based on the work we do in the morning and then before every break. They do the serenity prayer all together and then go work on their projects. Throughout the day, you'll hear them talking about a meeting they were at last night or a meeting that they're going to go to or game night that they've all organized. Or you'll hear them talking about their goals. Come on, you guys, we need to do 5 more before break time to get 100% for the day so far. And it's all about building that self-esteem, that camaraderie, that friendship, and making those new relationships. We have different levels once people start that they can choose to go for if they would like, such as key people, forklift drivers, baler operators, project leaders, and we will do all the training in-house for those. And those pay a little more and are intended to keep people there a little longer if they would like to stay. We don't have a maximum or minimum amount of stay that people can come. If somebody needs to have a job for a month and then they're going to move back home when they finish treatment, that's fine. Come for a month. We're glad to have you. If you need to stay with us for 2 years till you feel stable and ready to go to the next project, that's fine. You can stay 2 years. Whatever the individual needs is what we'll do. We work 4 10-hour days. We used to work 5/8, but then people would miss the whole day if they had an appointment because most of the people don't have rides and the bus doesn't come real close to us and it takes a long time to get there. And so we found that if we had Fridays off, people could schedule multiple appointments on a Friday and their attendance increased. Our operations staff, almost all of our staff came up through the program, but 100% of our operations staff came up through the program. So when somebody's saying, I can't do this job, this is too hard, you can say, yeah, you can. I did that. Let me show you. Let me help you. And there's always somebody to talk to if you're struggling. You can always go into the operations manager's office and say, hey, this is what's going on. And he's gonna sit down and listen. You can come to my office, say, I'm struggling. So it's a really unique work environment. So far in 2014, we've had 28 different customers. And I don't know if you saw on one of the other slides, we are ISO certified, which means an outside organization is coming in and making sure we're doing what we say we're doing. So now we're doing that with 28 different customers and the average length of stay of 4 to 6 months. We are constantly training people. We get really, really good at training people and teaching people the basics. How do you do this? And coming up with tricks to get them to do what we need them to do. There's been an increased struggle with the heroin and opiate addicts in recovery. The cognitive short-term memory does not come back as quickly as it does with the run-of-the-mill alcoholic. And we've had to come up with some new tricks to help teach them. We hired a recovery coach who does more positive reinforcement, real-time staying with people who are struggling, so that when they come back from break, she's there and she's saying, okay, remember this time we're doing it this way. Because what was happening is people would revert back to something they had done 2 days ago or the day before. So it's been a little bit of a learning curve for us, but we're doing well. What we've learned, we've been in different areas around the state, and one of the mistakes we've made is not having local support and local leadership when we've opened a facility. We have a facility in Milwaukee that we thought would grow and boom, but it hasn't. And what we think the problem is that we don't have a board of directors down in Milwaukee, and we don't have local leadership from Milwaukee. We lead it from Neenah. So I think whenever we go into a new market now, it will be done very differently. And I think it's good to remember whenever starting anything, and that's why it's wonderful to see all of you guys here locally, that this is where it needs to happen. That Madison can't tell you how to do it for your area. You guys know how to do it for your area. There's a lot of talk about opiate and heroin as the task force, but to us, it's a struggle because it has some different consequences. But there'll be another drug. There'll be another thing that's popular. Meth will come back as being popular. And recovery is more about the behaviors and getting at recovery and perpetuating and breaking the cycles than just one drug at a time. I think credibility in recovery is important, that having people who are in recovery, helping people in recovery is always essential, that they're a part of it. And we can't make anyone do anything. We always encourage people. We try and motivate people. And we try and look at why people are doing some of the behaviors they are, not just the behavior. What's behind the behavior? We ask different questions when somebody's not coming to work. And then that the 4 10-hour days work better. How can you help? I mean, doing what you guys are doing. I think spreading recovery and recovery resources throughout the state is fabulous. check out our website. And then we do have an event coming up October 3rd called United in Recovery. This is our 6th annual. We have a fabulous MC, Maureen, who will be there, and great videos. But it's really a wonderful night of inspiration, celebration of recovery, and people who care about recovery coming together to support each other. Do you have any questions for me?
I think maybe what we'll do is we'll open up to questions for both right now. We have a half an hour, so if you have questions, if you have additional information that you're kind of wondering more about, why don't we plan on hitting both of our guests at the same time?
And there is additional information up here if anybody would like it.
Anybody have any questions?
When is your event in October?
October 3rd. There's a pamphlet right here about it, or it is on our website.
What is your website?
Stepindustries.com.
What would it take for Step Industries to be interested in a program in central Wisconsin?
We would need local support, so we would want a board of directors from local community. That includes business leaders, some people in a government role of some sort, a city maybe role, and then we would need business. We need businesses that are willing to say, yep, I'm going to outsource this project to you, whether it's a call center or a packaging or assembly or, I don't want to limit it. It could be anything, but there's got to be maybe 3 to 5 businesses that are willing to say, I will provide this amount of business to you guys for 2 years.
Do you have like an outreach person that would be available as a consultant if there was an impetus to make this happen? You'd be a...
Me?
Okay.
Yeah, I've been to Stevens Point. They've had me there a couple times to talk over the years. They've never pulled the trigger, but to talk about what the hurdles are, what the issues are. I've been there a few times, and then was just meeting with the mayor of Green Bay last week.
Good. Thank you.
With Aaron's house, it's got to be somewhat costly. What's the funding source for the individuals? I mean, it's all grants, or is it, do they have to?
Thank you. I appreciate the question. Aaron's house has a debt of about $170,000 against the property that we bought for $225,000, and it has a fair market value today of about $280,000. The renovation was done by the National Association of Remodelers Madison chapter. They gave us over $100,000 worth of time, labor, and material. We charge the student residents $580 to live there per month. They are not on a lease, and they stay about a year. And we have room for 5. So the mortgage is covered by the student resident fee. The rest of the expenses are, we have a house mentor who gets a room and gets compensated to live with the guys, and we have a director of resident services. So our annual expenses are about $40,000. So one of the fascinating things is you find money that comes from all kinds of different places. The beauty of social networking and the internet is that people find out about you from all over the country. And there's one gentleman, for example, who called me just to talk about his son and the things he was going through with his son. And we had a probably a half-hour conversation. When we were done with the conversation, we were both in tears. And a few days later, a small envelope arrived with a $25,000 check from a foundation that he started, and he's a guy who's in the Fortune 500. I had no idea who he was. He didn't tell me anything about him. I looked him up. And over years, I've just dropped him a note once in a while, and he's sent a large check. And this last year, I sent him a package regarding our fundraiser. And he called me right away and said, thanks for giving me the opportunity to be involved. I'll have a $25,000 check to you on Tuesday. And he told me about what's happening with his son. And then he sent me another note just saying, never ever quit. Thanks for letting me be a small part. And the money's there. And that's the thing I was talking about. It's finding people who are inspired, people who like what you like, people who are interested in what you're interested in. It's amazing how those doors open up. And I saw the Green Bay Packer logo up here. We receive grants from the Packer Foundation every time we apply. And yeah, we don't get all the grants. Shoot, we get shot down all the time because we're not big enough, we don't do enough, it's not their area. But I don't look to the city government or any other government to fund us. I look to do it through people who like us and who are like us, and that's how we raise our money.
What was some of the resistance that you had referred to earlier, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, it's the stigma of addiction. And one of the things was there'd be parents going, oh, gee, I don't know if I want to get involved in this because, these kids in these drug addicts, these alcoholic kids, they had a different image of them. They don't realize that they're our kids. They look just like our kids. They went to our schools. I could have told you when my son was young who the kids were going to be who were going to get in trouble, and one of them wasn't my son, right? But yeah, it's the resistance was too risky. What if something happens? What if things go wrong? What if somebody relapses? What if somebody gets hurt? All kinds of things like that. Plus, has it ever been done before? Gee, I don't know. There are other models for this. Will people come? Will people want to live there? All kinds of the fears. And a lot of that resistance comes from people who care about you. They don't want to see you fail. And so those people are friends and family. They would be some of the biggest resistance, but they'd also be some of the biggest supporters. And so, and then you'll get, in our case, you have to have the right zoning in order to have a house where you've got 5 unrelated people. Well, okay, so that just put us into, guess what, an area where college students live, right? And so then people would say, well, gee, what if there's parties going on? Well, gee, what if there are parties going on? So anyway, we run into resistance of fear. Fear is the resistance. And also change. If it's something that's socially good, we're going to have people, they're going to have resistance come forward because they don't want to see social change that they're not used to.
Michelle, did you have resistance with that as well?
We actually started a pilot sober living house in Appleton, and what we had was we couldn't find anybody to rent to us because the reason we were given was that we want traditional tenants. And we tried to explain that you're renting currently to people who are actively using, and we're going to be monitoring these people. And so we ended up going to somebody else, and a relationship we already had to find a place. But we've had people where we've gone to them with our business, and they say, we work with such and such company, and they won't allow us to work with your population. Or we had a company say, you can only have non-felons come to our facility. And we're like, well, that'll be hard because a lot of our population have felonies. And we did some education with them about what felonies actually are. Sometimes it's for child support. It's not always a armed robbery and murder. That sometimes it's regular people get a felony. They ended up hiring 4 of our people on at their organization. So it ended up being a great experience for everybody. once we were there and once we showed them what we could do.
Any other questions?
Just add that the Aaron House model is able to be replicated. That's the way we set it up. There is a program that runs. There is a house. There's operations at the house. All those things have been running since August of 2007. Been a lot of growth. It's all been created by professionals. And so there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of outcomes that are that we can share. Thanks.
This might be a record, folks.
It's a great turnout.
Well, if you want to, please complete your evaluations. You can leave them in your spot or you can pile them out there. There's information out there. Rhonda?
I'd like to congratulate him on your recovery.
Thank you.